I live on a beautiful ranch deep in the heart of Texas hill country. It's miles away from the nearest city and even further from any nosy neighbors. Well, except for the horses next door. They're pretty nosy. My place has a couple acres, some cattle, a whole herd of horses, and peace. No HOA, no rules. I'm a rancher. I work when I want, wear what I want, drive what I want. Life is good. Then one morning I was awoken up by the sound of police sirens. Looking out my window, I saw 3 squad cars barreling onto my property. Here I was, thinking I hadn't committed any crimes. What did these cops want now? As the police approached my front door, I heard them yelling, "Police, open up." Startled, I throw on some clothes and stumble out to the front porch. Before I could even ask what was going on, one of the officers started reading me my rights. "Mister, we're here to arrest you on behalf of the Hidden Creek Homeowners Association. You are wanted for violating several sections of the deed covenants, including maintaining a nuisance on your property and violating the architectural guidelines," the officer said. Completely shocked, I responded, "What are you talking about? I don't even belong to any HOA. Look, there are no houses within a quarter-mile of me. I've got cattle and horses, not neighbors." The officer looked at his clipboard and replied, "According to this, you do indeed belong to the Hidden Creek HOA and have violated numerous rules." At this point, I knew something was wrong. I immediately went inside to grab my warranty deed. Sure enough, the first line on the document stated, "The State of Texas, General Land Office. Being by a competent authority vested in the conveyance of land esteated to the state, hereby conveys to the heirs of Jesse G. James." That's right. This was my great-great-grandfather's homestead, passed down to me through my family. It had been in our family for generations. To put it simply, I was a direct descendant of the original owner. Therefore, no HOA could touch me. I marched back out to the officers and showed them the deed. They were speechless. After a few minutes of whispering amongst themselves, one of the officers returned to me and said, "Mr. James, we've made a mistake. We sincerely apologize and are very sorry for the trouble we've caused you. Please accept our apologies and consider this matter closed." They left just as quickly as they had arrived, driving off down my driveway as fast as they had come. As I watched them go, though, I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling. Were those cops really as clueless as they seemed? Had they really made a terrible mistake, or was there something more to this story? And then it hit me. I wasn't part of any HOA. I didn't have to worry about any restrictions. I lived alone. In fact, no one else even lived close enough to me to complain about anything. This must have been some kind of joke. But who would have orchestrated such a thing, and why? Let's go back a week earlier. I was having a wonderful evening. Just after sunset, I sat on my back porch swing, sipping some sweet tea while listening to the crickets chirp. All was well until my neighbor, Patricia, showed up. She was the president of the HOA, and she rarely ever visited, so I was surprised to see her approaching. "Care to join me for a moment, Patricia?" I asked. "Actually, I have something to discuss with you, but I'm sure it won't take long," she said. We talked about the weather, the local football game, and the latest news. And all the while, Patricia kept glancing at my property as if she was looking for something. Finally, she let out a big sigh. "John, I need to ask you something, and it's rather personal, but I hope you can help me." "Of course. What is it?" "Would you be interested in selling me your land? I'd be willing to pay you whatever you think it's worth," Patricia asked. I felt a chill down my spine, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean? Why would you want to buy my land?" "I'm afraid I have some bad news for you, John. The fact is, you're in a rather awkward position. Your presence here prevents us from completing a major project that will benefit everyone in the area." "What project?" I asked cautiously. She leaned closer and whispered, "We plan to build a luxury housing development just beyond my property. We're offering each landowner a generous sum to sell their land." However, you have turned down our offers, and so far we have been able to reach an agreement. So this is what she's after. They want my land to build a housing complex. But why? Why was she doing this? Before I could respond, she continued. John, I realize this may come as a shock to you, but you're not as independent as you think. You live in our community, and we have the power to influence things around here. I strongly suggest you reconsider your decision. If you agree to sell, we'll give you a handsome price. But if you refuse, we'll use our influence to make life very difficult for you. Just remember, you think you're outside the system, but trust me, you're not. And with that ominous warning, she turned and walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a growing sense of foreboding. And then the threats began. Late at night, I would hear strange noises near my home. Sometimes I'd find small pebbles or dirt piled on my doorstep. Once I discovered a dead snake lying on my welcome mat. These incidents left me shaken and worried about what might happen next. But the most alarming sign came when I started receiving fake violation notices from the HOA. The letters were filled with bogus accusations, such as letting my grass grow too tall or parking my truck in the wrong spot. They even accused me of having too many animals, which was ridiculous since I owned a ranch. All the while, my neighbors started giving me strange looks. Rumors began to spread that I was a criminal who had somehow managed to avoid arrest. The situation was becoming increasingly stressful, and I was starting to feel trapped in my own home. That's when I reached out to my lawyer friend, Reza. Over a cup of coffee, I explained everything that had happened. He listened intently, nodding his head as I spoke. It sounds like she's trying to scare you off, John, Reza finally said. She probably thinks if she keeps harassing you, you'll eventually agree to sell. That's what I thought, Reza, but how can I stop her? These phony violation notices aren't exactly actionable. And I'm certainly not about to start a fight with her over a dead snake on my welcome mat. Reza smiled. Don't worry, John. We have a few tricks up our sleeves. First, I'm going to send someone over to dig up the dirt on Patricia. We need to know everything about her and her dealings with other landowners. With Reza's help, we started compiling evidence. We obtained copies of all the phony violation notices, collected witness statements from neighbors who had seen suspicious activity on Patricia's property, and took pictures of the strange items that had appeared on my doorstep. Meanwhile, Reza discovered that Patricia had been using fake reports about my property to try and bribe other ranch owners into selling their land. She had claimed that my land was contaminated with toxic waste, which would soon render the entire area unfit for living. Of course, this was absurd. My land was clean, and I had the paperwork to prove it. However, Patricia had convinced several gullible neighbors that my presence was somehow poisoning their properties. This gave her leverage over them. She could threaten to expose their land contamination unless they agreed to sell to her. We also found out that Patricia had already forced several families to sell their land by making similar false claims about contamination. She had even gone as far as bribing the local sheriff to conduct a sham investigation of my property. With our evidence in order, Reza and I went to the county offices to file a complaint against Patricia. Unfortunately, the officials we spoke with weren't very helpful. They told us that Patricia was a prominent member of the community and a major contributor to local charities. Plus, she had strong ties to the sheriff and several other influential people. Not only that, but Patricia had already paid for expensive lawyers to protect her interests. Essentially, we were up against a well-funded machine that wasn't above using dirty tactics. Determined to expose the truth, we went to the media. We contacted every local newspaper and TV station in the area and told them our story. We provided them with all the evidence we had gathered, including witness statements, photos, and documents. Soon after, the news broke. HOA president accused of harassment and fraud. The public was outraged by Patricia's actions. People began calling for an investigation into her activities. And finally, the authorities took notice. Within days, the county had launched a full investigation into Patricia's activities. She was removed from her position as HOA president, and several businesses severed their ties with her. In the end, my property was declared forever exempt from the HOA's control. The police apologized for their involvement in the incident, and the HOA was restructured to prevent anyone from gaining too much power. Several lawsuits were filed, and Patricia had to pay a hefty fine to the county. As for me, I went back to enjoying my life on the ranch. I rode my horses once again, feeling free, proud, and victorious. Now, whenever I sit on my back porch, sipping sweet tea, I know I'm truly in my own slice of heaven, a place where I'm not just a landowner, but a master of my own domain. And there's one last thing you should know. After all that had happened, I still didn't sell my land. Final message: this is my ranch. I make the rules, and I stand my ground. Tips: